My apologies. So, Kari Hunter, thank you for joining us. Welcome. And you've got 3 minutes to present to us this afternoon. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou. I'm glad you've declared a climate emergency and begun on a climate strategy, and thanks for your ears. As I said a couple of weeks ago, the strategy has good principles, many good activities, but it's too small in scale for the reality of the climate and biodiversity emergency. Please develop a strategy that goes much further to envisage how everyone's needs can be met in a zero emissions, sustainable, regenerative and resilient future Christchurch. And develop a plan for how to get there from here as quickly as possible despite the uncertainties. This means a major reorientation of how we approach things. Incremental changes, while continuing largely with business as usual, won't get us there. Sustainable zero emissions means not burning fossil fuels. Offsetting is unreliable and unsustainable. It also means not relying on emissions produced outside our district. The strategy needs to allow for uncertainty and cover the range of possible climate impacts, including less likely but more severe ones. And everything the Council is responsible for should align with this vision. Since transport makes for a large part of Christchurch emissions, it makes sense to set the city up for much reduced travel and freight and implement safe, pleasant cycle lanes and active transport routes everywhere quickly. And it makes sense to radically reduce the large funding that is put into roads for mass private cars. Maintaining previous standards is not a priority, and expansions to reduce congestions impede the climate response. Aligning with a climate mitigation strategy means not enabling high emissions activities via our council-owned companies. For instance, there's no place in the climate emergency for another airport at Terrace or for high flows of air traffic through Christchurch Airport. There's a case for putting a deadline very soon on the export of coal via our port and the use of our ports to support bottom trawling. A resilient city would be one that is more self-reliant, less dependent on imports, especially as the climate crisis may disrupt international supply lines. Mitigation and adaptation will require changing work patterns and housing needs. It would be good to see the Council lead Christchurch as fast as possible towards compact mixed use, medium density housing, for instance up to 3 stories, business on the ground floor, integrated with green space, clustered around rapid transport nodes and served by active transport routes, not dominated by cars. Housing that will be really affordable for the people who will need it, developed with low emissions and low waste construction methods. A long view would also consider wastewater treatment in the face of sea level rise sooner rather than later. The Council should be prepared to develop publicly owned housing that's consistent with its urban design strategy in cases where the private sector will not do so sufficiently or quickly enough. Lastly, it's a big task. In order to support the major changes and resources needed, people need to understand the scale of the emergency and why we can't keep living in the manner to which we've become accustomed. Appendix A shows the likely direct physical effects of climate change well. Public education on this, please, and better yet, include the uncertainties, including the more severe but less likely outcomes, and the social effects of those physical changes.
That has brought us beyond the end of the 3 minutes set aside, unfortunately. If you just had...
I had one sentence.
I was going to say, if there's one concluding remark, yeah.
So, a bolder, more comprehensive strategy to integrate future food, work, housing and transport with integrated mitigation and adaptation on all fronts. Fast, because we've left it so late. And it's a big task, but that's what the physics and the people and the biodiversity of the future call for.
Thank you very much indeed for coming along this afternoon. That does bring us to the end of the 3 minutes, but thanks very much indeed for the time that you've taken talking to us this afternoon. Thank you.